So I took RDA to locals and I managed to get top 4. There were 5 rounds of Swiss and then top 4 cut. It's usually top 8, but some of our players went to Oceanics, so they weren't there. So the numbers were a little bit smaller, but nonetheless, still 5 rounds, top 4. I was torn because before the event, I wasn't sure what build I wanted to take. Because initially, I wanted to take the trap variant, right? So if you watch the replay, I showcased that build and what it can do because it was insane. But I was missing the karma cannons. But you basically utilize skill drain as your floodgate to control tempo with your Gaia and your red zone to keep the game simplified, and you just beat them down with your RDAs. That was the general concept. And then you have blowout traps to keep you in the game. But I wasn't able to get the karma cannon, so I ended up going with a Centurion build where you Calamity Lock. But at the last second, I was looking at the deck and I was like, so it's a bit inconsistent when you draw these, right? You don't really want to draw these as your normal summon because you already have your primary normal within Soul Resonator. So I was like, oh, let me keep it very simplistic but consistent. So I ended up cutting these and just oversimplified it. So that's one thing that you have to consider when building a deck, especially when a deck has a 1-card combo or even a 1.5, because this deck does have that. You can potentially put it in contention to be a good deck, right? Because you have a 1-card combo, you have room for non-engine, and you can simplify the game state. With your consistency, you can capitalize, right? That's the whole general summary, right? So we have your triple Soul Resonator, you have your double Vision, you have your 1 Crimson Resonator, and of course your 1 Synchro Resonator. One of the choke points in this deck is when they stop him. If you do not have access to Bone, it's pretty devastating. You're most likely going to pass. It's not as bad if you open up with Gaia, because I mean, Gaia's there and you can just simplify the game state with your hand traps the following turn, right? Because like, oh, they stop this, you have hand traps, well, you're hopefully top decking something good, which is not unlikely, but you don't want to leave it to that. But compared to Gaia, meaning you go Gaia search this, summon, it's fine. That means you have 3 or 4 hand traps to stop them, and then your guy is there to help you search for another soul the following turn. But there are times where this getting stopped is so devastating that sometimes you don't draw enough engine, and you draw a bunch of your Resonator engine. It's like, oh, these aren't hand traps, so I need to be able to do something, right? So that's why you kind of bump the ratios of the cards to pair with him, right? So of course the card you pair with him is Bone. Because if you hard draw Bone, it's fine. You don't mind this getting stopped at all. That's why you play the new card. You play Red Lotus King Flame Crime. This card is insane because of the consistency boost that it has for this deck. It's not necessarily what it does for its explosiveness. It's more so what it allows for your mid-range style of gameplay to do. Because before, this was not a 1-card combo. This searches Bone, you discard a random card. It doesn't matter. But now, the fact that you can have this be a 1-card combo with 4 hand traps is insane. That's just really good. It seems like it's very underwhelming, but that's the point of the deck. It's a very mid-range style deck. That's just one aspect of the deck, but the possibility of having that as an option is why it's good. I've established that this is the choke point, right? But if you draw these guys, it doesn't matter, because then you just play on after. And that's not even considering the ceiling you have when you open up both of these, and then this can search a Resonator, right? That's like best case scenario, but then you're not really viewing that for consistency, because that's not as likely as you opening up this by itself, right? So that's why I think this is really, really good with this card. Because like, you could play that 1, but it defeats the purpose of what I want to do, is ensure that this gets stopped and not really matter, right? That's the reason you max this out, because you'll have 3 hand traps or 4 hand traps, or you have this and all you're missing is Soul. There's so many ways to him, right? So then you have your 2-card combo there. So like, let's say you have this, you draw into this, summon effect, negate, oh, it's fine, special, and would end on your Hot Red and your Red Rain, which is huge. The fact that you don't have Gaia, typically you prefer to have Gaia, but if you don't have access to Gaia, then that's fine, because that means you've simplified the game state. You have Hot Red, you have Red Rain, and then you nuke the board, negate something, back to you. You don't top deck anything, you top deck into hand traps, that's fine. You go attack with Hot Red revives the one you just use the previous turn, effect, and then snowball from there. Like that, it serves kind of like a Crimson Gaia in a way, but ideally you would want to see him through Gaia, because that's something that you need to have overall consistency to be able to compete. If your ceiling isn't as high, and if your ceiling is low, one of the few things that you must have is consistency. And then of course you have your Obsessive Overloop. This card's insane. For those of you that play the deck, you're well aware of what this can do for you. Setting up the spatter plays, setting up your red zone plays, because sometimes that does happen where you're anticipating a Nibiru, so you get this to the graveyard, so that means or dispattered and nibbed your Hot Red, right? and then you have access to him. So then you go, oh, it's fine, I'll go Vuvu, banish your hot red or banish your Dispatter, depending on which one you prefer. And then you have access to red zone. Red zone would revive your hot red or your Dispatter and then back up with hand traps, right? So that's why this is important. At least get your synchro back. And it just helps you push through for games sometimes. And then of course you have your non-engine. This is last minute. I was not playing this, but then I felt like I needed it. Because remember that your deck is very low sequence to start. So if you have a 1-card combo deck, if your efficiency is within 1-card combo decks, you need to simplify it. Because you can't push interactions with all the resiliency of extenders. Because these aren't necessarily good extenders. They're just efficient in what they do, right? You can't like summon this, they stop this, or special this, or imperm, you guys, like, oh no, damn. Or they negate something. You want to go up against the least amount of interactions after you simplify it as possible. And that's why you feel like you need this. And if you don't need this, then your other hand traps should be sufficient. And this can be just fodder for bone, right? So you play triple Moonlight, triple Effects Veiler, and of course, triple Imperm. Because first, this wasn't there, right? It was just these. But I felt like I didn't want to get overwhelmed. And this keeps other decks in check. Rogue decks just... And there are times that it's insane versus Snake Eye. It's insane versus Yugioh sometimes, especially when you pair with these. Like, this paired with this and this was okay. But now that you have this and this, it's pretty wild. it's just always going to resolve. But because you don't want to lose to your deck being inefficient in the way it's constructed, right? Because there are times where with this type of style of deck where you have 1-card combos and you just flood the entire deck with hand traps or non-engine, you don't want to lose to inconsistencies. So that's why you play Pot of Prosperity, right? Because sometimes you do draw a lot of hand traps and you want as many top decks as possible to get you out of that. So that's what Prosperity is for. And of course, all the searchers and all the resonators you have access to. And this seems perfectly fine. And it allows you to search for board breakers going second, which is insanely crucial. But I was going back and forth whether to play Ogre or this, but I felt like this is just infinitely better in regards to what I needed it for and what my fear was. And then you have your consistency cards, you have Resonator Calls, you have your Crimson Gaia. This card's insane. This is the reason why you're allowed to play this type of style of deck. It's almost on-engine because this will always be there. So you can deplete your hand, feel secure that, let's say you go Gaia, summon Soul, right? Then negate Soul. That's there. So now if they don't clear this, you're going to search for Fallen turn. And that's why you have so many hand traps to simplify the game state to get you to that turn, right? That's why this is so important. And then, of course, you have your Foolish Burial. Foolish Burial gets access to Bone. It's just another way to get to this because you send Bone, discard a card, send Vision, Vision effect, searches this searches Soul, and you just snowball from there. And then, of course, you have your traps. Most people don't play this one or this one. But I felt like you have to play these and give them a chance to fully understand why they're so good. Because the argument is they're traps. They're not that great going second. You try to initiate your combo and they might stop you, right? But because you require very minimal cards to combo is why you have room for the other cards to be non-engine, right? So let's say you open these two or either one, doesn't matter. Let me try to depict this scenario for you. This can be used at any given time. So that paired with hand traps ensures that you can possibly live. So it's not the worst if you draw them, but the fact that you can have something that can be really obscure in a sense of you have this. So in their mind, they have a backup. They have like a hand trap that they can preserve for the following turn, and assuming you stop them, they're like, okay, if they stop me, I have a hand trap and I can end on SP or something, right? And on some sort of established interaction. And that's where you go, Golem. They would not expect for you to play this. Because they know that you can, but they're not sure if you would. So then you go effect, banish, set this. And now it's like, how do they prepare for that? Because they thought that they have 2 hand traps in hand, a hand trap in hand, a board presence. But now you have Fiendish Chain to deal with that board presence. And you can play past the hand traps because hand traps in hand don't typically destroy cards. And you benefit from that because you keep your resource to synchro with. Because that's kind of one of the issues with synchros. Retaining your material to synchro is really good for you. Because when it gets destroyed, that's when you struggle. That's when you start crumbling. So you can play past hand traps. Because it's maybe going to be Veiler. Maybe at that point, it doesn't matter. Because you just have so much pressure, right? Obviously, you might have Gaia on field. That means you have red RDA engraved. So that means you're going to have more pressure by destroying their monster, attack, special. It's just insane. It just snowballs from there. And the good thing about this is you can keep cycling this through. there are times when you open up Soul and Prosperity, right? And I've noticed that a lot of the times, if I open up with Crimson Gaia, I felt like I would want to use Prosperity to search non-engine, so hand trap, right? Whether it be Biru to ensure that I just keep them oppressed that way and have this be viable. Because like usually people don't play these, they only play this, but I feel like Gaia being able to search this is insanely beneficial sometimes. Because this sequence with 2 hand traps or even 1 can stall you enough for the following turn to just give you that extra card you needed, whether it might be the crime or the bone or the search off this to get you there. Let's assume this is our hand, right? We have this and this. This is our hand. Because this can be engine or this can be non-engine, which is the cool thing about this. So let's say we start with Gaia, right? Activate Gaia. Gaia searches this. Okay, summon. Right, this gets negated. So you can use Prosperity to dig for your missing non-tuner, which is likely. You can do that. But with in mind that you have this in hand as well, you can dig for more hand traps, right? So typically what I see myself doing sometimes is not going for the combo piece and ensuring that I can stop them for sure. Because they're going to be playing through 4 hand traps, right? This is still going to be there. I can just try this next turn. So what happens is I pass, right? They do their play. I stop them. I simplify it, right? I might not even have to use all of my hand traps, right? I might not even have to use all my hand traps. But the fact that I have enough to stop them, right? This is probably dead by now, right? And then my turn comes. I draw into another hand trap, right? And then I can now. If they stop this, I still have 2 more hand traps, right? Instead of just having the single one that I might not have had because I didn't search it off. I didn't add it off Prosperity. So that's fine. I pass. I stop them again. Next turn. But this time, if they have more things, okay, fair enough. You would then that's just Yugioh, right? You just can't do it. You search for again, and then now you proceed. And things like that are insanely overlooked. Like just doing this niche things like that are like, oh, it's pretty wild, right? You could have easily dug for your missing crime, your missing bone. But this way, you deplete anything they try to attempt, right? That's a different approach. Sometimes it can be risky, but I feel like if you sequence it right, you should be okay. And if you know the meta enough, then you can interact optimally, right? Which is why taking this into account, right? And being able to go Gaia search this is insane. Just for the simple fact, because you can apply that same principle with this, except you won't get a hand trap, you'll get this. So that's why I feel like this is so important, just because you can do that. And of course, Red Rain. Red Rain's amazing. Thanks to Crime. Oh my goodness, that's just so good. The fact that you can do a 1-card combo with this, it's so good. Let me just quickly show you. If you haven't seen it, I'm pretty sure you'll see it soon enough. Summon this effect, add this special. This goes into Red Rising. You go chain 1, chain 2. This revives this. This will dump Red Rain, right? And then you synchro into Hot Red. Trigger this, add this back, set. That's insane. That's just crazy. And then you can just get it next turn. If you summon another dragon, get it back, and you just keep cycling through. It's just so good. All right, so then now we have our side deck. You have Duster. It's very broad, very generic. Triple Double Storm, triple Dark Wheeler, triple Evenly, triple Deep Fissure. These are when I go Dimension Prison. I'm freaking traumatized. I freaking lost the flu. I lost the flu twice, bro, in Swiss and in top 4. Fucking hell. A Dimensional Barrier. And then, of course, triple Skill Drain. Thank you, Yasin. This is basically when you go first. You simplify the game state with these guys because sometimes Nib is redundant. Mourner was very redundant sometimes versus Flu. So these came in right away. And so did these. But for the most part, whenever you go first, you have this. You have your Red Zone. You have your Hot Red. You have everything in place. Gaia. So now you just nullify the board. Destroy. Attack. Flow. With Gaia, it's just insane. It's just, you don't really mind being under this. And the fact that you can shut this off with your bone is the reason why you even play it. Because if you weren't able to get rid of it with bone, then you wouldn't play it. But the fact that you can is just insane. Because you can easily access bone, right? The moment you combo, you have access to bone and grave. Send this the following turn, then set another one. It's really, really good. And of course, you have your Red Rising, Q-Bell. This card's insane. This is so good in this deck. Void Ogre, you have your double OG RDA. This is really insane. Scarlights, double Hot Red. You have your Bane. And then, of course, you have your double Dispatter. This card, I never summon. I don't ever summon this guy. So I might cut this and put another Scarred. Because I never, ever summon. I've only summoned him once, and it wasn't even relevant. It was just not even good. It just wasn't even good. It just wasn't at all. But one thing I do want to try, as I mentioned earlier, is the Centurion build, right? Because of this card. This card is insane. So, okay, let's say you combo off. Everything goes according to plan, and you get Nibiru. So the same principle as the hand just being there to keep you alive for the following turn. View this the same way. So let's say you resolve combo. Let's say you have this on field, and you have a Nib token on board because that's what they gave you. This is all you require. Nib token on board. Okay, fine, fair enough. I got Nib dropped. So instead of having your hand traps, this is one of your hand traps, right? Because this is technically a hand trap, right? So let's say you have this alongside this, and you just got Nib drop, and you have your stuff in grave. Yeah, this is in grave, right? All of your sinkers that you made previously, and then you're like, oh shit, I have to pass. Okay, pass, go. This is the card that no one's gonna expect, right? This is the card that no one's gonna be like, oh, what the hell is that, right? They probably know it exists, but most often than not, they're not gonna know what it does. So it's gonna be hard to anticipate, and that's generally how you capitalize on some games, because insight is very important. So what happens is you wait for the right moment, the right opportunity, right? Because obviously you'll have access to your red zone as well, or your golem as well, right? Because depending on how you anticipated the turn to go, you add either or. Typically, I like going for this. But if I have hand traps, I'll go for this. So let's go for the red zone, the Fiendish Golem instead. So then you, this is set. So you're passing with your nibbed board and this in hand. So then you pass. And at the right time, you go effect, Shining Star Dragon. This targets your Scarred, right? Special Scarred. Then you synchro into your Oxala. So then a few things are going to happen here. This is going to trigger summoning you out your second copy of RDA, right? So then this will hurt you stand up for the following turn. Sorry if it looks chaotic. And then since you Dark Synchro Dragon with him, you get to nuke the board, right? So you nuke the board at the right time, of course. You gotta do it at the right time. Then Crimson Gaia triggers. Since the monster was destroyed on the field, you can revive an RDA. You revive this guy back, right? That's off one card. All this is already pre-established. So just view this as one card doing all of this. So that's something I want to explore because I think that's insane. That's just too good not to try. But that's basically going to be it. How cool is that? I've had a lot of fun playing this deck because, for one, you played Yugioh. It's just basically, okay, anticipate correctly, control tempo, maintain tempo, and let your deck do what it's meant to be doing, right? Through consistency. And that was the fun aspect of it. It's not as high sequence as Synchron is, but it's a mid-range deck that it's a lot of fun because of simplicity and nostalgia factor, right? Because it's a 5D's deck. It's Jack Alice's deck. So it's like, how can you not want to play Red Dragon Archfiend? Just so cool. But one thing to note before the end of the video is this card. I felt like I need to add this card, but not sure. All right, that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Let's subscribe if you haven't, and thanks for watching.